Good morning to all of you. Let's do the prayers before we start our new Upanishad today. Okay. So, the prayers you are familiar with. In fact, the Shanti prayer which we do towards the end, this Upanishad starts with that because every Upanishad got their beginning prayer. So, our ending prayer is a beginning prayer for this Upanishad. But we'll talk about it later on, maybe next week. So, let's do the prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhur Tat Savitra Varenayam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Diyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Asto Ma Sadgamya, Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya, Mrityurma Amritam Gamya. Om Sahna Bhavatu, Sahna Bhunaktu, Sahviryam Karvavahi, Tejasvi Navadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahi. Om Shanti 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 Om. So this Upanishad, which we have been waiting for, the name is Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So Brihadaranyaka, that's the name of it. Just like every Upanishad is a part of one of the Veda. And this one is a part of Yajurveda. Yajurveda. And this is among the oldest Upanishad. And the first part of the name, Brihad, that means vast, ginormous. So because this is the largest of the Upanishads, and Aryanaka means literally of the forest. So Brihad Aryanaka is the ginormous forest Upanishad. And this name is very appropriate for this Upanishad. First of all, it can take months and years walking its main path, exploring its detours. And there's another big Upanishad, which is called Chandogya Upanishad. That's also giant. And if you combine these two Upanishads, Chandogya Upanishad and Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, together they are 2/3 of all the Upanishadic literature. This Upanishad is divided into 6 chapters. And the whole composition, most of the composition, except for a few mantras, it's in prose. So you can say that it's studied with a few verses, but the main theme is all explained in prose. And 6 chapters, they are called Adhyaya. They are further divided into 47 sections, which are called Brahmans. So 6 chapters. The first chapter has 6 Brahmans. Second chapter also has 6 Brahmans. Third chapter has 9 Brahmans. Fourth chapter again has 6 Brahmans. Fifth chapter, that is the longest, it has 15 Brahmans. 15 or 16. And then sixth chapter has 7 Brahmans. So you can see that how big or giant this Upanishad is. And it can be subdivided into paragraphs further. All those chapters and the sub-chapters, they are divided into paragraphs and they are called kandikas. And there's another way it has been divided. It's into 3 kands. See, there's a adhyaya means a chapter, kand means the part. 3 kands. Madhu kand, Yagvalkya kand, or it's also called Muni kand and Khila kand. You're all familiar with the names of the Vedas, right? It's a eternal knowledge, wisdom, even though there's a one Ved, but it got divided into 4. Rig Ved, Yajur Ved, Sam Ved, Atharva Ved. We should know these names. And in each of the 4 Vedas, a distinction has been made according to content and form. And because of that, they are called either Samhita part, or Brahman part, Aryanak part, or Upanishad part. So these words we should understand. What do they really mean? Because we have been studying Upanishads. We have studied the Ved mantras. So Samhita. Samhita is a collection of prayers, hymns. And those prayers are to God in various manifestations. And some of those prayers are kind of a formula. And then it's called mantras. So in other words, Samhita, hymns, or the prayers, they are written in the mantra form. On a very practical basis, Samhita is to be considered as the chief Ved. Like a main part of the Ved is Samhita. So when people say Ved, in their mind, they are talking about the Samhita. And these mantras, they are addressed to devatas, the divinities, or even the infinite supreme being. So these forms of divinities, they are regarded as the gradational, accessible approaches to the Creator. So in other words, whenever we are worshipping to Agni Dev, through the Agni Dev, we are approaching the Supreme. So all the prayers are going towards that highest. But according to our own comprehension, as a devotee, as a seeker, we just hold on to this devatas. It could be Surya Devata, Chandrama Devata, Vayu Devata. But in essence, we are praying to the Lord, the absolute truth. So Samhita means a collection of mantras belonging to a particular section of the Veda. And those could be in the poetry, or it could be sentences in prose. Or they could be the chants in the Samveda. We know that Rig Veda Samhita has 10,580 mantras. The Samveda Samhita has 1,549 verses. And some hymns, which are called summons, Lord Krishna mentioned in Bhagavad Gita also, summons. They are modulated in numerous ways for the purpose of singing, either during prayer or during yagas. And Yajurveda Samhita has two parts, actually. One is called Krishna and the other one is Shukla. And this Brihadaranyaka is from that Shukla part of Yajurveda. That's why we will see in this Upanishad prose sentences, and some of them are very long verses. Atharva Ved is generally not studied as a prayer book. It's used only during certain specific forms of sacrifice, different kinds to receive benefits to the reciter, both material as well as spiritual. So these are the Samhitas. Now let's look at the Brahmans. Because as I told you earlier, that these 6 chapters, they have all Brahmans. So what are Brahmans? Because sometimes we get confused. See, Brahman is one thing, Brahm is another thing, but these are called Brahmans. The Brahmans teach the practical use of the verses and the chants presented in the Samhitas. So we use them in the ritualistic utilization of the mantras of Samhita. But Brahmans, they go beyond this restricted definition. And they contain much more material, such as Vidhi. Vidhi means a directive precept. That's called a Vidhi. And there are Brahmans in the Atharva Veda also. And the Upanishad also. And Aryanak part of the Vedas are the esoteric consideration of the practical ritual. Because otherwise that is the main subject of the Brahmana, but it is explained in the Aryanaks. That's why we'll see that in the opening passage of this Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there is a horse sacrifice, which I'll explain it to you. It's very symbolic. That horse sacrifice serves as an example of how a ritualistic symbol and material is used as a bigger concept for the purpose of ritualistic contemplation or even a philosophical meditation. Because sometimes we just get lost with the word itself, but we got to understand what the deeper meaning is. So this Upanishad, which we are going to go through, starts with the horse sacrifice. And you will see that when we do the Chandogya Upanishad, that starts with Panchagni Vidya. where we will see that astronomical physical events shown as a symbol for mystical contemplation. So these are like a symbols given. And if we just only look at the word meaning, we get lost. We got to look at the symbolic meaning of these rituals as well as these terms. So I talked about the Samhita, the Brahmans, Aryanics, and the fourth part of the Vedas is Upanishads. Upanishads are the philosophy. So they are like a philosophical sections of the Brahmans and the Aryanics. And they are usually detached for the purpose of study. And just by the name of the Upanishad, we understand what those rishis are talking about. So this Upanishad, separately we can study, because each Upanishad is a complete book by itself also. Even though they are part of the Vedas, but they can be used as a textbook by itself. Almost like a very practical manual to study. So Brihadaranyaka Upanishad belongs to the Shukla Yajurved group, most elaborate of all the Upanishads. And we will see that it touches almost every issue relevant to human life. If we study with the full reflection, contemplation, the rishis, they say that you can rise to such heights of philosophic genius, which is considered the greatest achievement of a human mind in history. So that's why it's not just we go through the mantras, we churn on those mantras, try to understand them. That's the reason I suggested that translation of this Upanishad with the word by word meaning, so that you don't have to write. It's already written in there. All you do is just pay attention, focus on it, try to understand it, and see if it speaks to you or not. There is a tradition in our Vedic culture that in the first stage in life, as a brahmachari, as a celibate student, that's what brahmachari means actually, student. That is the first part of the dedication of human life. That students are supposed to study the Samhitas, the first part. Then the householder, the Grihasti, is dedicated to the second part of life, is expected to diligently perform the rituals detailed in the Brahmans in relation to the corresponding mantras from the Samhitas. And when a human being enters the Vanprastha, the hermit, the third part of the dedication of life rises above prayer as a chant and performance as a ritual, keeps himself or herself busy with pure inward contemplation of the more philosophical and abstract realities which are hidden behind the outward concepts of divinity. Or you can say that external performances of the rituals. Why do we do the rituals? In the third stage in life, we try to understand that. What is the meaning of doing the prayers? And when we enter the fourth stage in life, which is called as sannyasi, that is a concluding part of the dedicated life, a serious seeker occupies himself or herself with the direct meditations which are prescribed in the Upanishads. An outlook of life transcends all empirical forms, or even the outwardly relationships, or even the space-time itself. So that's how our rishis, they set out this program for a human life. So this is all from the Vedas. The information is from the Vedas also. The reason I have gone through all these different terms for you so that you don't get confused. Because we don't use these terms in our everyday language. So this first chapter and the second chapter, they are the Madhukand. You remember I told you there are 6 chapters? So first 2 chapters, they are part of the Madhukand. And the third chapter, fourth chapter, they are the Yagvalkya-kand. And the author of this Upanishad is considered to be Rishi Yagvalkya. And the last 2 chapters, they are from Khela-kand. So in the Madhukand, first chapter, let me give you the names of these Brahmans, because from the names itself, you can see that what we'll be studying. Ashwamedh Brahman. That's why I said this horse sacrifice. We will understand what this horse sacrifice really means. Because some of these terms, when we translate into English, the real meaning, we just move away from that. So, but write it down so that when we go through it, you will understand what it means. So the first part in the first chapter is Ashwamedh Brahman, then Agni Brahman, then Udgit Brahman. Some of these terms are new to you, but I will definitely explain as we go through it in detail. The next one is Purushvidh Brahman. Saptan Brahman. Ukt Brahman. Ukt. Uktha. Ukt. Then in the second chapter, the first Brahman is Ajat Shatru. Then Shishu Brahman. Murt Amurt Brahman. Murt is a form, Amurt is formless. Then Maitreyi Brahman. We will see that beautiful conversation between this rishi and his wife. Madhu Brahman. Vansh Brahman. Then in the second Kand, Yagvalkya Kand, chapter 3, Ashval Brahman, Arth Bhag Brahman, Bhujau Brahman, Usht Brahman. See, first it was a Ukt, now it's a Usht. Ushasta, Usht. Kahol Brahman. Then Gargi Brahman. I'm sure you have heard that Gargi name also. Antrayami Brahman. Akshar Brahman. Sakalya Brahman. So these are the first three chapters. And the fourth chapter, which is again part of that Yagyavalkya Kand, Sat Acharya Brahman, Kurch Brahman, Jyotir Brahman, Sharirika Brahman, Maitreyi Brahman, and Vamsaha Brahman. And chapter 5 is the longest. And chapter 5 and 6, they are part of the Khila Kand. So the first Brahman in chapter 5 is Om Kham Brahm Brahman, or Brahma Brahman. Om Kham Brahma Brahman. Prajapati Brahman. Hirday Brahman. Satya Brahman. Satya Brahma Samsthan Brahman. Manomay Brahman. Vidyut Brahman. Vag Dhenu Brahman. Vaishwanar Agni Brahman. Gati Brahman. Vyahit Brahman. Pratrida Brahman. Pratrida. Pratrida. Ukt Brahman. Gayatri Brahman. Surya Agni Prathan Brahman. In the last and the sixth chapter, and this is part of that Khila Kand, the third Kand, Pran Samvad Brahman. Karam Vipak Brahman. Shri Manth Brahman. Putra Manth Brahman. Vamsaha Brahman. And then after that is the Shanti Mantra. The reason I wanted you to write it down also, or at least hear these names so that you are familiar with some of these terms at have time. And it's good to write down now. Because when our hands are writing, eyes are seeing, we are putting a deeper imprint on our mind. That's how we reflect on things. That's how we contemplate. I could have written and sent it to you, but it's good to write them down by yourself also, to hear these words also, because some of these terms you are familiar with, some you are not. So when we go through this Upanishad, you will get familiarized with some of these new terms also. Okay, so remember in which Upanishad it belongs to, how many chapters. You don't have to memorize all the names, but at least know 6 chapters. And 6 chapters, they are divided into 3 cands. Okay, and from here we can see, because some people think that studying the Vedas or the Upanishads is only for the male population. No. When we see the name Maitreya, Gargi, they were very much interested, very knowledgeable. So we should get encouraged also. We have gone through the first stage in life where we learned the secular knowledge. We went to schools and the colleges. We studied all that wherever our interest was or wherever our destiny took us. Then we got established into the Grihastha ashram. So now whether we are in the Grihastha ashram, I'm sure we are living in as a Grihasthi, but our mind, see, this is a journey of the mind right now. What is important to us? That's why we study these. While doing the household duties, we can still be absorbed into these deeper studies. The rituals which we did before, sure, those rituals sometimes we did to get the benefit of those rituals. We prayed to God, give us a good health, give us good children, take care of our children. But now we have to rise above that. This is what we are going to learn in this Upanishad. How to do the upasana without any kamana. How to live a life as a yogi. Doing the duties, but in your mind always God. Bhagavad Gita teaches that. These Upanishads teach us that. So you will see the different stages of life also. That's why I said every aspect of life is covered in this great Upanishad. And how to rise above all that also. Sometimes we think that sannyasi means leaving the home, wearing different colored clothes, living in the jungles. No. According to the Vedic seers, they said, you can be in your own home, but be a sannyasi in your mind. Constantly we got to see that where our mind is. Is it attached to this material world? Or is it attached to God? That's what we got to see. So I just wanted to give you a little outline today. And next week, I will give you the details of each, not really, I should not say detail, but a summary of each chapter also, so that you have a little bit more idea what these chapters are about. And by the time, hopefully, you'll have your books. And then we can just start with the verse number 1. Okay. So, and I was telling you that the mantra which is associated with this is the Shanti mantra, which we normally recite towards the end of our classes. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnam Adai Purnam Eva Vishishyate. I'm sure you all know the meaning. Let me just go through it. Om. Om means God. That absolute is infinite. Om Purnam Ada. Purnam Idam. Idam means this. That means this universe is infinite too. So that absolute is infinite. This universe is infinite. This infinite emanates from the infinite. So that means this universe which we see came from the infinite. Purnat Purnam Udachyate. Taking the infinitude of the infinite universe, the infinite alone remains. So that means if you take out this manifested world, what remains? Only the Om. And then we say Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So this is a Shanti mantra for not only this Upanishad, but also for other Upanishads belonging to the same branch of the Ved, like a Shukla Yajur Ved, because there are other Veds also belong to that. Even though we don't have it books on all the Vedas, altogether there are 108 Upanishads spread in those 4 Vedas. Okay, so all the Upanishads from Shukla Yajurved, they have this Shanti mantra. And why do we recite these mantras before and after of our Swadhyay, of any Upanishad or any portion of the Veda? It's like a prayer to the God. We are being thankful to God. And we are just saying that, please make this scattered mind more focused so that I can understand the deeper implications of these studies. This mantra, this Shanti mantra, which I just recited, is a unique one. And I'm sure you all have memorized because you have been going through it for a long time now. And it is a simple verse, but the whole content of the Upanishadic philosophy is condensed there. If you pay attention, everything is there. When we say supreme absolute is infinite, that means it's beyond the reach of the frail individual intellect of a human being. Because can we comprehend what infinite is? We can't. It also says that the universe that we see has come out of the Supreme. And it's also infinite in its real nature. How many galaxies are out there? How many Milky Ways? This earth where we live, it's just a little speck. And this is all manifested. So this manifested world is also infinite, this Rishi is saying. So the cause as well as effect, they both are infinite. But we also know that there cannot be two infinities. So that's why this verse says that taking the infinitude of the infinite, that means by removing the otherness of the universe through reasoning by the purified intellect, the otherness which was caused by ignorance, avidya. What remains is the infinite absolute alone. That's what this seer is saying. In other words, this universe is phenomenal. Sure, it has a pragmatic reality, which is transcended by the absolute reality, which is the real nature of the world and our own self also. So in the relative sense, we see our body. But in the absolute sense, we are not the body. In the relative sense, we work with our mind and intellect also. In the absolute sense, we are only the Atma. This knowledge is the saving knowledge which frees us from entanglements and also the sufferings of the world. So by chanting this verse, what happens to our mind? Think about it. Because these are not just the words we repeat like a parrot would. We should know what we are reciting. So by chanting this verse, our mind becomes attuned to the absolute. And also which is non-different from ourselves. We are part of that whole. And then at the end, we are praying to God, may peace be unto us. It can be understood that these three words, Shanti, 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 can be understood many different ways. One way is that we are saying that free me from the pains caused by myself. Because we do cause pain to ourselves. Second piece, we are saying, please free me from all miseries caused by the external world. And the third is from all the calamities brought by the divine forces of nature. That's one way we can understand. So the number 3 is very important. But we are praying to God. Any kind of a pain we go through, any kind of a suffering we go through, we are saying, God, please help me. I am part of you. So no difference. So let's end the class here today. And next week I will go through just not in detail, but in summary, what we are going to study in this by section next week. Okay. So then we'll start with the very first verse also. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.